Most villains in Marvel are straightforward about what they want: power, revenge, control, survival. But Doctor Doom is different, because Doctor Doom genuinely believes he is the hero, not in a delusional way. In the most psychologically unsettling way possible, with complete self-awareness, complete intelligence, and complete certainty that the world would be better if he ran it. And the most uncomfortable thing about Victor Von Doom is that he might not be entirely wrong about that last part. So the question worth asking is not why Doctor Doom became a villain. It is why someone with that level of genius and that level of capability chose the path that made him the most feared man alive instead of the most admired one. Because here is what most people miss about his origin. He did not start as evil. He started as extraordinary. Victor Von Doom was the most gifted student at his university, a scientist, a sorcerer, a man who could have genuinely become the greatest hero the world had ever seen. And then he met Reed Richards, another genius, perhaps the only other mind that could match his own. And something happened inside Victor in that moment that had nothing to do with science or magic. His pride could not survive it. Not because Reed was better than him, not because Reed humiliated him or took something from him, simply because Reed existed, because there was someone else in the room who was also extraordinary. And for Victor Von Doom, that was already too much. Psychologists call this narcissistic injury, the experience of someone whose entire sense of self is built on being uniquely superior. And what happens to that self when the uniqueness is challenged, not destroyed, just challenged? The reaction is always disproportionate to the actual threat, because the threat is not to their position or their safety. It is to their identity. Victor rushed an experiment. It failed, and the explosion left a scar on his face, not a disfiguring scar, a small one, but Victor could not see small. He saw the scar the way someone who has built their entire identity on being perfect sees any imperfection, as total ruin. So he had an iron mask made. He put it on before it had fully cooled, pressing hot metal against his face and burning himself far worse than the original accident ever had. Think about what that tells you. The original wound was small. The wound he created by refusing to accept it was catastrophic. And then he covered both wounds with armor and declared the matter closed. That is not a villain who chose evil because evil was appealing. That is a man who could not tolerate his own imperfection and built an entire identity around never having to face it. The mask is not a symbol of darkness. It is the most honest thing about him. Because behind it is a man so afraid of being ordinary, so afraid of being second, so afraid of the same vulnerability everyone else carries, that he encased himself in iron so nobody could ever see it. And then he made himself the most powerful individual on the planet so that nobody would ever again be in a position to make him feel what Reed Richards made him feel in that corridor: insufficient. He tells himself he wants control because the world needs someone strong enough to protect it, but the real reason is the one he buried under iron and pride decades ago. He wants control because control means nobody can ever make him feel small again. And that is the tragedy at the center of Doctor Doom. Not that he is evil, not that he chose the wrong side, but that somewhere underneath the armor and the absolutism and the relentless need to dominate everything around him, there is still the young man from that university corridor standing next to Reed Richards, feeling something he could not name and could not survive. And every choice Victor Von Doom has made since then has been a response to that moment, not to defeat Reed Richards, to never feel that way again. The mask keeps the world from seeing his face, but the armor was always to keep himself from seeing his fear. Most people have never built an iron suit or declared themselves ruler of a country, but most people understand what it feels like to meet someone who makes you wonder, if you are enough, and to spend years building walls so that feeling can never reach you again. Victor Von Doom just built his walls out of iron and forgot to leave a door.